What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For those of you guys that are new here, my name is Tony. Thank you guys so much for tuning into today's video. I have a lot of good information for you, so make sure you guys stick around to the end of the video, and I will also be giving away some stuff at the end of this video. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So obviously you guys already know exactly what this video is going to be about based on the thumbnail, but I'm going to be telling you guys about my 3 favorite ways to target trout, and that is both from shore and on the boat. Obviously you guys know I just recently bought a boat. Before I had a boat, I've been going down to the rivers, going down to the harbors, catching fish from shore. Before live scope, before the boat, anything like that, I was already catching fish from shore. So I want to show you guys how you guys can go down to the harbors, down to the rivers, catch some fish, and have a fun time doing it. First on the list is going to be a river technique. That is going to be a bobber setup with either a spawn bag or a bead. Spawn is just a general term for the fish eggs that come out of trout. I like to use brown trout and steelhead eggs. Those are obviously the most preferred if you're going to be throwing spawn sacks. Obviously spawn sacks are just a couple eggs tied into a little netting. Put that right on your hook and you call it a day. Float that under a bobber. Another way you can fish too is with a bead. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of beads. I don't do it a whole lot. If you don't have spawn, obviously a bead is a great way to still catch a lot of fish. Beads come in all different shapes, sizes, colors, all sorts of different variety of beads. I'll get into beads in a little bit. I want to talk to you a little bit about spawn, obviously, because that's what I'm using most of the time when I'm drifting a bobber in a river. So there's 2 different ways you can go about it. You can use a fixed float or a slip bobber. I prefer a slip bobber when you're not fishing too deep of water and if the water's not moving too fast. I like that slip bobber because it allows that spawn sack to just have a little bit of a more natural action falling down, and sometimes that can trigger a quick bite. I know a lot of people like to use slip floats too. Nothing wrong with them. Those work fantastic too. Obviously, you're fishing a fast, bigger river, you're going to want a fixed float. And that a fixed float is basically just a float that will sit on your line. But what I have rigged up here for you is a slip rig. It's a little more condensed than it would obviously be on a 9-foot rod. I'm using a 9-foot rod mainly. Anywhere from 9 to 13 feet. I find you get a lot of control, especially if you're fishing from shore on the river. You can really extend your arm, get that drift out, and keep your line off the water, which is very beneficial. So like I said, this is going to be a little more of a condensed version of what I'm using out there. But basically what I run is 12-pound main line. I'll tie that main line, 12-pound mono. And I like mono for one, you don't want to use braid in the cold. And most of the time when you're float fishing for trout in the rivers, it's cold. So you don't want to be using braid because obviously braid will absorb the water, creates a bunch of ice, not fun to fish with. Fluorocarbon on the other hand, also not something you want to bulk your whole spool with because it has no stretch and no give to it. So mono is that happy medium. It doesn't absorb water, has a ton of stretch, so you can really absorb those head shakes and absorb those deep runs downriver. And I tie that directly onto a 2-way swivel. From there, the 2-way swivel goes to 8 to 10 pound fluorocarbon leader. Kind of depends on the clarity of the water. If it's obviously really muddy, you can get away with 10-pound test. It's really not the end of the world. Fish aren't going to spook too bad. And if the water's clear, on the clear side, I'll use 8-pound test just to kind of minimize that line visibility under the water a little bit. Another thing you guys will notice on this setup too is that I have a series of split shot. I prefer to use size 7 split shot. Obviously, you can use whatever you want, but there's a size 7, which are these guys right here, that I prefer. It's not too big, not too small, flows perfectly downriver, and yeah, I just like having these because it's been good for me, so that's what I use. But the most important thing about your split shot is having the correct amount of distance between your weights. And by that I mean you don't want to have all of your sinkers or all of your split shot condensed into one area. You want to have them spread out somewhat equally, so that'll allow that spawn bag or bead to kind of turn over and float horizontal. If you have all of your split shot up high and you have a long leader, all your weight's going to be up here. When your bobber hits the water, your spawn bag is still going to be back here, and it's actually going to end up floating up backwards and kind of not floating down where you want it to be. So you want to have a series of split shot. I normally leave about a foot in between each split shot. I'll run a series, depends obviously how fast and how deep the water is. That's obviously a huge factor as to how many split shot I'm going to be using. But obviously, biggest rule, make sure they're spread out equally. Down to the business end, I have a very, very small Gamakatsu octopus hook, either size 8, size 10, both work really well. And as you guys see it sitting right here, this is obviously going to be how I'm fishing my spawn. A bead is very similar. Obviously you're going to peg your bead about 2 inches or so above your hook, and that is exactly why I have these guys right here. These are toothpicks. You can buy pegs, but if you run out of pegs or if you're on the water and you don't have any pegs, I always keep a jar of toothpicks because you can peg a toothpick just as easily as you can a regular clear plastic peg. Break it off, works just fine. But like I said, obviously as you see it sitting here, this is meant for spawn. You throw a spawn bag right on the end of this little hook here, float right down river, and hopefully catch yourself a big one. So that's the rig that I use all the time when I'm float fishing the rivers. You can also use the same setup for float fishing a spawn bag in still water out in the harbor. Works just the same. Obviously you might not need as many split shot because there's no current, but yeah, definitely use this technique to go catch some fish. The next bait I want to get into is going to be a spinner. Spinner can be a very, very versatile bait for brown trout and steelhead alike. Does not matter if you want to fish this in the river, fish this in the harbor. You can adjust your cadence, you can adjust your speed, you can adjust your depth. It's a very versatile lure. Super simple, obviously. Super duper simple. This is a Blue Fox size 3. That is what I use, either gold, pink, chartreuse. Doesn't really matter. Whatever you're feeling and whatever your confidence color is, throw that one. This is definitely a lure that I prefer to throw in the river systems. You can swing this through tailouts. You can fish directly across the river, straight retrieve, let it swing. You can fish it a lot of different ways. Super versatile. Like I said, you can adjust your depth. When you cast out a spinner, if you're fishing the rivers, when you cast it out, you know, count to 2, 3, 4 seconds and retrieve it as you normally would. If you don't get bit, you know, after you try that cast 2, 3 times, try counting a little less. Maybe do 1, 2 seconds and then start your retrieve. That's going to bring it up higher in the water column. When you cast out, if that doesn't work for you, you know, you can fish an area a bunch of different ways just by varying your timing and your cadence. You can fish the whole water column, right? So like I said, you can count down 2, 3, 4 seconds, count on 1 or 2 seconds, start reeling. That's going to be the top of the water column. And then obviously if you want to fish the bottom, count down 5, 6, 7 seconds, obviously depending on how deep you are. I normally do about a foot per second. So if you're counting 1, 2, that's going to go down 1 to 2 feet. If you're counting 3, 4, you're counting 3 to 4 feet. And then if you want to fish, you know, 8 feet deep, count to 6, 7, 8, be on that bottom half, and then start your retrieve. So you can fish this, obviously, all over the water column. Super awesome bait. You can fish this fast, you can fish it slow, you can swing it, you can fish it a lot of different ways, cover a lot of different water, fishing very fast, very effective, very efficient. And obviously, when a fish bites, you'll know. Last but not least, the third and final bait I want to go over with you is a crankbait. It doesn't have to be just a square bill crankbait. Doesn't have to be this size, doesn't have to be this color. You can use a jerkbait. You can use obviously a deep diving crank if you're fishing the harbors. You can use a flicker shad type of crankbait as well. I use this in the harbors a lot too, the square bill, but I also use this in the rivers strictly because it doesn't dive down super deep, and you can also kind of control the depth with this guy, believe it or not. How you control the depth with this is all based on how far you cast, right? So if you cast out 70, 80, 90, 100 feet, it's going to go down to its maximum depth, which is about 6, 6.5, 7 feet. If you're only casting about 40 feet out, it's going to go about half that, right? It's going to go down to that 3, 4 foot mark. So that's when you can just work the whole water column fishing the same bait. Like I said, with the spinner, you're doing your cadence by counting. This, you're doing your cadence by how far you're casting. So obviously 2 different techniques, 2 different ways to fish, but also can be very effective. This lets off a lot of flash, lets off a lot of noise. A very good bait for stained water. You know, if the river's high or the river's muddy or just a little murky, this can shine phenomenally. If the harbor's a little murky, a little dirty, same thing. This is going to be your go-to bait. So obviously you guys have to play with, you know, what baits. And obviously there's multiple different baits that you can catch trout on. I just like throwing these 3 mainly. And obviously this is a little more river oriented. For those of you that don't have a boat, you can do it from shore. You can go to the river. You can go to the harbors on the rocks, cast and catch fish just like everybody in the boat can. So for those of you guys that don't have a boat, you don't need a boat. I've been doing this my whole life without a boat. Obviously you can catch fish on the boat, from shore, doesn't matter. So now you guys who don't have the access to a boat, go right ahead, go on shore, catch some fish, and have a blast doing it. So I know I told you guys I was going to tell you about 3 baits. I told you about 3 baits. I want to tell you about one more. Obviously it's not going to be a river bait. You don't want to throw it in the rivers. This is going to be a harbor style bait for any of you that go down to the harbors, fish off the rocks, fish off the docks, just fish from shore or a boat, doesn't matter. But I'm going to show you guys one more secret bait. The last bait I want to show you guys is this guy right here. This is my secret weapon, okay? Don't tell anybody. I know I'm putting it on YouTube, but don't go tell your friends, or go tell your friends. I want everybody to catch fish. I don't really care about secrets. This is what I use. I catch a lot of fish on it, so go do the same. I want you all to have success. I want you all to catch fish and have a blast. So go do the same. But with that being said, this is a hair jig style bait. It's a 1/2 ounce. You can also use a 3/8 ounce. I like a 1/2 ounce, especially if you're fishing from shore. You can bomb it out a little bit farther. You can fish the bottom. You can fish the top. You can cast and kind of pop it, reel, pop it, and reel. Or you can cast it out and kind of reel and pop at the same time. So it acts like a bait fish swimming. You know, you can fish this all sorts of different ways, but I really, really like throwing hair jigs for big old brown trout. Brown trout especially will keen into a hair jig. Steelhead, not so much. Not to say that they won't eat it. I've just definitely caught a lot more browns on hair jigs than I have steelhead. If you guys are planning from fishing from shore in the harbors, definitely go grab some hair jigs. 1/2 ounce, 3/4 ounce. My buddy Mike makes these. I've caught unbelievable amounts of fish on this exact jig. So if you guys want to check any of this stuff out, I'll leave some links below. But like I said, my buddy Mike makes these, and they work really good. All right, so now I have some good news for you. For those of you guys that have made it this far in the video, for one, thank you very much. Second of all, I want you guys to go down to the comment section and comment the word hair jig. I'll put it up on the screen. Go down to the comment section, type the word hair jig. For one, I will know that you guys made it to the end of the video, and second of all, that will enter you in what I'm about to say. I told you in the beginning of the video I want to be giving away a couple things. First thing I want to give away, and I'm going to be doing giveaways for a bunch of different videos coming up here, but I want to start with giving away a free fishing trip. So for those of you guys that don't know, I guide a little bit on the ice, I guide a little bit in the rivers for steelhead, brown trout, smallmouth. I guide a little bit on my boat for walleyes, but I want to give away a very special opportunity to one of you guys to come ice fishing with me for big trout. And if you don't want to ice fish and you want to fish the rivers for trout, fine, we'll do that too. But all you have to do to enter is literally comment the word hair jig in the comment section below. That will enter you automatically, because I know for one, you made it to the end of the video and you actually listened to it and didn't skip through. So thank you again for that. So yeah, I will know exactly who's getting entered by the comment section down below. I will pick one of you guys, or maybe two, maybe three, a couple of you guys to come out fishing with me. I want to give back a little bit to all the support you guys have been giving recently. So like I said, go down to the comment section, comment the word hair jig. That will enter you for the opportunity to come fishing with me, either on the ice, or if you don't want to do the ice, we can do the river or my boat, whatever you guys want to do. We'll make it happen. So with all that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning into today's video. If you guys watched this all the way through, I appreciate you. Go leave me a comment. Let me know if you learned anything from this video, if you're going to go out and try catching some fish. And if you do catch some fish, definitely send me some pictures of some fish on Instagram. If you guys don't know my Instagram, I'll pop it up on the screen. Follow me on Instagram, send me some pictures. I want to know that you guys are using this advice to go catch some fish. So that's going to do it for today. Thank you guys so much. If you guys are new here, like I said, my name is Tony. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button if you guys learned some stuff. And obviously, like I said, comment the secret word down below if you guys want to come fishing with me. So that's going to do it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next time.